clause in there allowing leave for domestic violence purposes, so for contacting legal or psychological help or attending court hearings for domestic violence reasons. And then that last very large catch-all, any OFLA purpose. So that opens it up then to a larger list. You know, that sick leave can be used for baby bonding and all of those OFLA purposes as well. As far as payment goes, again, Oregon kind of did that split where very small employers can offer the leave on an unpaid basis, and then it becomes paid leave on a slightly for larger businesses. And that's where the Portland sick leave statute went away when the state sick leave statute came. But the confusing part is the state statute has a part specifically about Portland, so it feels like Portland has a separate sick leave. So for Portland, it's paid if you have 6 or more employees. Other places in the state, it's 10 or more employees. You pay that at the regular rate. There are some alternative pay language for piece rate and other special pay situations, but for most people, it's going to be that regular rate. You do not have to pay it out on termination, but you should have that in your policy. Make sure that you're not just trusting the statute on that, because you not saying anything and there being some expectation could get you into trouble. And then, though it doesn't have to be paid out, if the employee is rehired within 180 days, then that leave is reinstated in as much as they had accrued previously. And then this is what the part I call other elements. It's kind of the catch-all. As I'm reading through statutes and I find things that don't fit in my other categories, I go, oh, okay, I'll write that over here too. So these are things that often trip up employers because they may have a current policy that is generous enough, that allows enough use of time, it accrues fast enough, but you can get caught on some of these small requirements. And so this is why you need to make sure, if you think that, oh, I didn't need to do anything about this because our policy is great, look at it. Make sure that all of these little T's are crossed and I's dotted. For example, you can't require employees to find replacements. So we've seen a lot of sick leave policies that say, you know, if you're calling out, you know, less than a day ahead, you will need to find a replacement or some sort. Can't do that anymore. Some reporting in terms of reporting to employees how much leave they have available, at least quarterly. Our recommendation is just to, if possible, put it on pay stubs. Just do it every time, then everybody knows. And then, yeah?
If your employees have access to it, do you still need to print reports for them?
That is a really good question.
Thank you.
And I wish I had a really good answer for it. The statute does not specifically allow it, but it doesn't disallow it either, so we don't know where that's going to net out. Reasonably, you would say if the employee has access to that electronic pay stub and they can see that, you wouldn't need to, or they have access to an online system and intranet where they can see that always, that you wouldn't need to do that. It depends on how risk averse you are. I think if it were me, I might print something out quarterly just to belt and suspenders. Do I think that the chances are high that that's what's going to get you in trouble in the end? No. And again, then the employer has to keep records, no retaliation, and then BOLI is in charge of enforcing and creating rules for implementation and enforcement. And this is really important because if you just read the text of the statute, you're not going to have all of the information. BOLI has come out with administrative rules that give more clarity to some of those issues and drill down a little bit more, give a little bit more detail. So I actually keep both the statute and the BOLI administrative rules printed out on my desk for easy reference. That's probably going a little bit overboard for most people, but again, like I said, I actually like talking about this stuff. So that is sick leave. Does anyone have any quick questions on that before I move on? Yeah?
Just if you roll sick leave into a PTO,
Mhm.
And the PTO in most organizations is payable upon termination, once earned.
Yeah.
Are you now, you just have to work that out, you just subtract the sick leave out of that? Or have you just basically?
For the most
said-
part, if you're putting it in one big bank, then you're going to treat all of that time the same. So that's actually one reason that employers sometimes don't put everything in one bank is if they want to treat it differently on termination. And that's actually a really big thing in California, because in California, vacation time is considered vested once you've accrued it and earned it. It's considered vested and has to be paid on termination. There's no choice about it. And so for sick leave, if you put sick leave into that PTO bucket in California, you will have to pay it out on termination. Oregon, you can choose whether you're going to pay out PTO or not, but if you put sick leave in that bucket, expect to pay that out as well. Yeah?
On the point about the ability for the employer to say it has to be at least an hour,
Mm-hmm.
is there a restriction on the other side where, I mean, can the employer say it has to be 4 hours, it has to be a day? Like, if you used to have a policy where it was take a day or don't take a day,
Right.
there's some.
You can't do that with sick leave. So
So they have to be able to take it.
they have to be able to take it in hour increments, which creates a little bit of an issue when you're talking about exempt employees, because, you know, if you talk to a lot of people, they'll say, exempt employees don't keep track of hours, don't track their hours, don't keep track of each specific hour, because if you do, you're going to be risking the exemption. And then you have legislation like this where it says, oh, but you have to actually allow them to take something in an hour increment and keep track of that hour. So it seems a little contradictory. You're not going to lose an exemption for keeping track of someone's sick leave hours, though. But yeah, they do have to be able to take it in that hour. So if someone says, I want to come in an hour late because I have a doctor's appointment and I'm going to use my sick leave for that, that is permissible.
And my other question was about the front loading.
Mhm.
The previous presentation, actually at NAO, with a different provider, talked about the fact that the front loading could be a problem in the new law, with the need to possibly have, for the employer to have to pay it out if it wasn't used at the end of that year before the next set was front loaded.
So there are, I'm trying to think of that part of the statute. There was some odd wording in terms of how that worked. I believe that when the bully administrative rules came out that it clarified that a little bit. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I know that there was at one point an issue with that, but we have not seen that being a big issue, that with the front loading that you do still then have that ability. In the same way that, now in California it would be different if you're putting it all in one bank, but in Oregon, time isn't considered vested just because it's accrued and in that bank. So in the same way that if someone had 40 hours that they had accrued hour by hour, you wouldn't have to pay that out on termination. So just from that perspective. But there was one weird little thing in the way that the statute was written, but I believe that has been taken care of.
So the carryover isn't required then. You can, if you front load, you can, as long as you replenish upon the new year.
Right, and that's how it is supposed to,
Use
right.
or lose.
That is how it's supposed to work. That was the piece where it's the little, where when they were talking, when they got down to front load on that page, they kind of talked about, well, you have this option or this option, and I don't think, it may not have mentioned the carryover as it should have. I believe that, I'm trying to think of how our policy is currently written, because we went back and forth on that a couple of times, and I believe as our policy is currently written, it does just replenish every year, and we decided that that was okay. But yeah, you were right that there was that little thing there for a while. So.